Hello, I'm Pastor Sherman Bradley, and today I want to share a little bit from the word grief. Now, normally I would say a word of wisdom on the word, but grief is such a subject matter. I don't know if anyone can ever actually consider themselves an expert on the subject. I do have experience with the subject, and that's why it's an important topic for me, but I'm far from an expert. I'm still learning. I'm still in the process of grieving. And a friend of mine contacted me this week, and his mother-in-law passed away, and she lived with them. I just had lunch today with a friend who shares about having parents in their home when they passed away and the challenges that posed for them and how they've had to walk through grief. And grief is something that doesn't wait on you to decide whether or not you want to participate. When loss of life, especially someone of intimate relationship, even unhealthy but intimate, it produces a profound effect upon every facet of your being. Every part of your life is affected. And when I lost my mother, while I knew it was coming and she had been battling cancer, the second bout of cancer, for 2.5 years, it was traumatic. And the fact that 2 days after I buried my mother, a good friend of mine took his own life, that was traumatic. And some weeks later, someone near and dear to me calls from prison, struggling with substance abuse and is now incarcerated. And then it would just be a couple of months later when my mother-in-law would pass away. This, in the span of 4 months, was a lot to take on. And at that time, I had not had any major death happen that close to me before. And I thought, being a pastor, I was prepared. I was woefully underestimating the power of grief and how it impacts every facet of your being. Couple that with my wife grieving the loss of her mother and the subsequent challenges that she would face, we were both in over our heads and attempting to navigate day-to-day life, not as if grief didn't happen, but as if I knew what I was doing in the midst of it. And as probably most men do, we tell ourselves to tough it out, to buckle up and to be a man and to continue with the challenges outside of grief that everyday life poses. And we would have some challenges in that year, even outside of the loss of these lives of people who were very close to us. And then just a few days ago, I was listening to NPR, and Dr. Lucy Hone, who's a New Zealand researcher on the subject of resiliency, shares her story of losing a child while still having 2 teenage boys and a husband, losing a child to a traumatic incident that instantly the child dies, and how she has to now handle this resiliency from a new angle. How can she navigate this heartbreaking loss and a small community where everybody knows everybody and go on and continue to live life, living life for her husband, living life because she has 2 teenage boys still alive. And she recalls sharing how someone told her, this is going to be at least a 5-year journey. And here I am, a little over 5 years from losing my mother and these subsequent losses. And then even in these 5 years, losing stepfather and cousin during COVID, and my wife losing an aunt and uncle, the closest relatives to her mother who has deceased already. And we've been exposed to a lot of personal grief. But you can't even ignore the millions of people that died around the world in 2020 and 2021 and 2022, and what we're still dealing with as residue from COVID and all of the death that has happened. We know someone who's lost someone, and we've been exposed to grief in ways that we had not prior. And it has a lasting effect on us. And one of the things that I'm learning that I share with others is there is no expiration date, and nor is there a cookie cutter process to how each individual will experience grief. So it's so important that we open ourselves to the learning that grief is going to provide for us. And it's important that you find some assistance. For me, it was a 13-week small group course, and it was one-on-one with a counselor for probably at least 6 months. And quite frankly, I'm still engaged, not so routinely, but as I feel I need a tune-up to sit down with a professional and continue to unpack the feelings that I experience and the questions that are still unanswered and the desires that I have, not only for healing, but for now to help others who I've come to know have not been willing to take strides to get outside assistance to help them navigate their day-to-day lives post losing someone near and dear to them. Grief is real. Grief is challenging, but there is still hope and there is help. The challenge becomes being open to allowing help to help. There'll be more on this subject to come as I learn more. I hope to share more with you as well. God bless you.